we get ahead of ourselves here, I want to thank you for showing up. I hope this is going to be super helpful for you as we get through the video. We're going to get your kit all set up so you can get to vlogging, so you can get to making food videos, so you can get to making car stuff, so that you can start creating to create. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get going. Before we get into all the exciting stuff is the ancillary equipment that I think is the most important stuff that you're gonna have in your kit. The cameras are gonna change as you grow as a photographer. All this equipment won't need to, but the physical body of your camera, as exciting as it is to get a new camera, it's not gonna be your last one, unless you spend a lot of money right up front and you're just going all in. Which I suggest you do if you can do that. Some people have the space to do that. They're ready to invest and they're ready to jump into the next one. I can do a video about those kinds of cameras too. I'm missing one thing and I'm gonna go grab it. Let's pull this thing out. Get your Godox SL60W, an incredibly powerful lens for the price point that you're getting. There is very little downside to it. The one thing is that there is a little fan on it. It'll let you know what the temperature is as you're shooting. This is the protective cap on there for the LED. That's what the LED looks like right out of the box. It has a panel on the back on here, which I'll show you on the one that I'm using right now. The temperature, how much power you're putting into it to make the video look the way you want it to look, and that's pretty much just the settings right there. I honestly don't know what this one button is for. I've never used it. Maybe I'll learn that too. Again, your lighting is gonna separate you as a photographer and a videographer. It's gonna show people that you care, that you're actually putting in a little bit of effort into this and you really do wanna create a good image. Godox SL60W. Moving on. Again, one of the more boring parts, but something that's gonna be essential in your kit is your memory cards and how you store your photo and video. The stuff, as you get more and more into it, it takes up more and more space. If you go into shooting 4K every time, you are gonna realize your storage is gonna become a problem overnight. So, that being said, stay at 1080 for now, go up to 4K when you find it reasonable to do that. Memory cards, SD cards for your camera. If you've got a single slot, you're just gonna need one. Dual slot if you're going professional. But Extreme Plus or the Extreme Pros, both these SD cards, I'd always suggest getting 128. They're only like 20 to 40 bucks at the most. Grab a handful of them. Just have the extra ones around, because sometimes you're shooting, card fills up, you still got to keep shooting, or you don't have time to sit down, drop all the files onto your computer and format the card, put it back in, get to shooting. Just have an extra couple. You know, if you always have 20 bucks, say if you're going into Best Buy, you're going into Walmart, Target, you see one of these and you have the money, just get in the habit of buying one as you're going. There's never a surplus of those. It's always useful, because then when your buddies shooting with you and they forgot their card, you're second shooting at a wedding and they forgot to format their cards, you can just toss them a couple and be like, yo, keep going, like let's keep shooting. We're only halfway through the day. Like, A, why did you not format your cards? And B, why aren't you buying these on the go all the time? Just throw a couple in your car, throw a couple in your bag, just have them on hand. That's pretty much it. SanDisk, Extreme Pro, Extreme Plus, 128 gigs is the ideal. If you can go up from that, amazing. It does get more expensive as you go up. Not always necessary. Now, I'm gonna recommend the ones that I've been using for external storage, because you don't want all this stuff sitting on your laptop. Sure, you might have a terabyte of storage like I do, but the price point of getting a terabyte on your computer it can be so expensive. And once you get right past that, you know, if you get the maxed out MacBooks, if you get the maxed out memory on it, it's like buying a whole other MacBook with the 1 terabyte so that you can have 8 on your computer. Now, I've been getting the Samsung T7 and T5s for the last 5 years. These things have been super useful. They're sleek, they're slim, they're solid state. Do not go down the hard drive route. Just don't use hard drives. Hard drives have moving parts in them, which from experience can be faulty and can lose you a year's worth of footage with one bump. Don't buy them. Microphones, almost before you buy the camera, I want you to grab a good microphone. Now this is gonna be so useful, because if you use the camera microphone, here, let me show you what it sounds like. I'm just gonna turn this off, and I believe the camera will take over the audio, and you're just gonna hear the difference from me using the lav mic that I'm gonna use, and I will suggest to you. This is the audio you're gonna get out of the camera. This is on a Canon R6. I'm gonna say most cameras are gonna have something similar to this quality. I don't want you to stick with this and deal with this anymore, so let's get back to my audio. So back to microphones. We'll get to the one that I'm using right now and the one that I'm gonna suggest you buy first, which is a Rode video mic. I wouldn't say get this one. This is actually the first piece of equipment I ever bought outside of the camera, because like you, I bought the camera and then I started upgrading the equipment. I would say if you're gonna buy a camera, and I'll have all the links to the stuff that I'm suggesting down below if you wanna go ahead and do that, it'll help me out too. I don't care what you go buy, do your due diligence research. Figure out what works for you. This is just what I would say I'd get starting off. The Rode video mic is an incredible microphone. These microphones come with what's called a supercardioid pattern, which means that these are called shotgun mics. It's going to primarily focus from the speaker going off the tip of it, and then it's gonna minimize the sound around it. So it's not gonna pick up the same audio from over here as it does from over here. It comes with a little shock system on here. Now, like I said, I wouldn't buy this microphone in 2023. I bought this in 2017. What's going on, guys? I am kind of in between work right now, between editing photos, trying to catch time to get shoots in, and it was what was accessible at the time that I knew about. I was super early in the game. I didn't know what I was buying. I just knew that audio was important because I had watched tons of videos before I bought my first equipment, and oddly enough, it was a random guy at a bar that talked me into buying my first Canon Rebel T6. Wasn't a YouTuber, so whoever you're talking to about cameras might have a little bit better insight into what's gonna work for you than I do. But I don't want any of this information to dissuade you from doing deeper research, looking into the YouTube world, going off and talking to one of the major creators out there, researching the major creators. If you can get in contact with somebody who has the higher up equipment in your area, talk to them as well. They're all gonna say you do need audio equipment. If you're gonna be doing any video at all, the audio equipment that you get's pretty much more important than any of these lenses right here if you're going to be going into video. The ones I'm going to suggest is the Rode VideoMic Mini and the Rode VideoMic Pro 2, or the Rode VideoMic Go. There's too many names, but there's the Go and the Pro and the Mini. Those are the ones that I'm going to say pick up because they are going to have the quality of this at this size. You're not going to be dealing with this massive monster. Now this is great if you've got a C-stand and you can boom this just out of frame right here. If I had my extension cord with me right now, I just moved, so granted this is why we've got a really boring background right now. I would extend this up to a C-stand and have the mic just out of frame so I could get this quality of microphone, because this quality is amazing. What I would say is possibly the easiest decision to make when it comes to microphones outside of getting the Rode Go or the Rode Mini Pro 2. I can't remember all the names of these things, but these are, Rode is the master of audio. DJI just stepped in and launched these little portable microphones. As you can see, I've got one on the center of my chest right here. It makes it really convenient if you have multiple people talking or you want to still be able to talk to the camera while stepping away, 10 or 15 or 20 feet without much interference. It's gonna allow you to tell stories in a more unique way while maintaining that good audio quality at a distance. Now these things both of these come in at about anywhere from $230 to $350. So on the lower end, you're gonna be at like $220. Obviously go onto Marketplace. Look for this stuff cheap. Try to find all this stuff used before you go and buy new. Again, if you're gonna buy new, I do have those links. You can probably get the DJI maybe used for $300. If somebody's really taking a beating with one of them, you might get them for $250, but either way, just expect to drop about $230 on this equipment so that you can show up the way that you want to be showing up. Now that we've gotten out of some of the boring side of stuff, which is the audio, I know that's not what you came here for. Maybe you did, and I'm glad you did. Let's get into the brass and bones, or whatever people say. Brass and tack? What is it that people say? Let's get into the thick of it now. Whatever kit lens you get, depending on the grade of camera that you get, you're not gonna have a prime lens. Now, a prime lens is gonna allow you to get those detail shots, create those portraits that you're looking for, get those blurry backgrounds, just create the unique look that's gonna separate you from the average person on their iPhone. The cheapest one, and across the board, doesn't matter what camera brand you go with, there are the 50 millimeters. Now, they're called the Nifty 50. Now, the Nifty 50 has an aperture of f1.8, and what that means is that it's going to allow the lens to open up wider to allow more light in. Now, as more light comes in, it gets a little bit harder for the camera to see what's in focus, so it's allowing you to have a pinpoint precision focus. That's where you get your portrait photos from and your product photos, where maybe just the logo's in focus, and as it goes into the background, it washes away, and everything in front of it washes away. The name of that blurring is called bokeh, however you want to pronounce that. That's the technical term for it. Your Nifty 50 is going to be the one you buy first. You can get these for super duper cheap, and it's going to change how you think about photography. If you don't buy anything else out of all of this, you already have a camera, or you want to gift, your photographer friend a lens after they've gotten their camera and you just want to get hyped up with them. 50 millimeter f1.8. This is the 1.4, which is just one step up, is going to be your go-to. Now, the downside to these cheaper lenses is that if you're recording film on the camera, they are loud. Now, as you get more expensive in your lenses, the autofocus becomes more and more prevalent in the quality of how that focuses, how quick it snaps into focus, how quiet that focus is, how accurate it is every time. Now, the 51.8, I ran my business with for about 2 years, just that in a kit lens and random lenses that I had picked up from my grandma, from just people who were giving away stuff. I ran off of kit lenses for a long time. Now, the 51.8 really is something that once you get that lens, there's no turning back. Once you have it, you're gonna get locked in. You're gonna get obsessed. It's gonna happen. The next lens that I would suggest outside of that, if you're really trying to get into food photography and product photography and maybe even some cosmetic stuff where you're going into portraits with makeup artists and you really want to get details of skin textures and stuff like that and real robust images that really take over the frame, your next piece of equipment, and this is one that I'm kind of going off the cuff, off the script right here, just because I really think it's such a vital lens to have in your kit as you get into food and product photography. I have the wrong cap on this right now. Now, the next lens that I would suggest you get outside of the 50 millimeter is the 100 millimeter. If you already have a kit lens that covers somewhere from 18 or so up to about 40 or so, getting your 50 is gonna be your go-to lens for portraits, for products, for low light, for just getting those first delicious photos that are just gonna change how you think about things. As you get into that, you're gonna wanna zoom out a little bit further. Now, there are kit lenses that are like 70 to 300. There's knockoff 70 to 200s that aren't the 2.8 or the f4 versions that you can get for a few $100. I'm gonna suggest you jump in and get a macro lens right out of the gate, because one, it's a different beast. It's something that when you're bored and you're at home and there's not much to photograph, you can always practice macro. I mean, the textures of the top of this microphone, the texture of what kind of cloth is that? Why can't I think of the textures of microfiber, the details of your food, your cat. The macro lenses are gonna make it super exciting. So every camera has some sort of equivalent of 100 millimeter macro. Now, you don't need to get brand names of these. You don't need to get the Sony version or the Nikon version or the Canon version. You don't need to go down that route. That route can be a little more expensive, and there are incredible third-party systems. Like on the cheap end, there's Yongnuo, you've got Tamron, you've got Sigma, and some of these are reportedly even better than the native lenses that come with the camera. So for a lot of people, third party is the way to go. I've happened to be in a fortunate enough place where I've collected my lenses over time, have had some gifted to me that have allowed me to stay within the native universe. That being said, sometimes it's just not worth it. As you get into that $1,000 price range, you want to go third party a lot of the time, just so you can save a little bit of change to buy your microphone, to buy those extra SD cards, to buy those external storage devices. 100 millimeter, 50 millimeter, boom, moving on. Lighting. Lighting is going to make the world of difference in everything you do. Now, there's always good light around. You can always make good light, you can always mock good light, but being able to have this on hand whenever you want and know exactly how to control it in every situation, that's gonna separate you. It's gonna make you you're gonna walk into every situation and just feel a bit more confident about yourself because you know what you're doing with your light. Now, it's intimidating, it is sometimes a bit annoying, and for lack of better words, not the most exciting purchase. It's right up there with tripods. I like to buy a good flash personally. When you're first starting out, buying a flash can be this like, what do? I don't know what I'm doing with the off-camera flash. I don't know what to do with this. Doesn't need to be off camera. There are 3 ways to shoot with a flash. There's on camera, there's off camera, and there's bouncing. Now I'll go over all those in a different video, but on a quick breakdown, you've got your on camera, which is gonna be your like paparazzi style, real like glitz and glam. Those are the photos that you're gonna see, you know, red carpet, whatever. There's some photographers that use it in food photography that are incredible at it. It's hard light a lot of the time. You don't have a diffuser on it. It's gonna completely separate what hits the flash from everything that's not in the flash. So it really isolates the subject that you're photographing. Now, off-camera flash, often used for portraiture, often used for food photography, often used for just about everything. It's an incredible resource. It's not that scary. Promise you, I'll hold your hand through it the whole time. First off, we're gonna go with the Godox V1C. Now, what I like about Godox is they have a lot of inexpensive, user intuitive lighting options for you that aren't crazy expensive. You know, you get into some of the higher end equipment with lighting and it is insane how much it gets charged for when it's not absolutely necessary for what you want to be doing. Now you can get away with a ring light, totally fine. You can get away with a softbox. You should have one of those anyways, and we're going to talk about that as well. But when it comes to flash, I would pick one of these up just because the sooner you get into flash photography, the sooner you're going to be treated as a professional and you're going to start creating like a professional because you're going to be curious like a professional to see what this thing can do. Bouncing the flash is going to be picking a lighter wall, you know, a white wall. These would work just fine. It's just you got to use a little more power because as light hits a darker object, it dims as it bounces off of it. So whereas flash photography, doing direct paparazzi style, shooting it right at you, bouncing, depending on the color of the wall that you're bouncing on, as light hits something dark, it itself dims and bounces off of it. Typically, if you're shooting weddings, you're gonna see photographers shooting right up at the ceiling. Ton of time, you're gonna see it right at the ceiling, especially if the subject's close. That light's gonna go up and it's gonna go down. It's gonna fill the room quite a bit, so it's gonna allow for a good ambient light throughout the environment, essentially making whatever's lit up top a better quality of light. Now, the next way to do this is to bounce. Like I said, we can bounce this at a wall and it's gonna go off the wall at the same angle that we shot it. So if I'm hitting this at 45 degrees this way, it's gonna bounce off at 45 degrees that way. So if I've gotta shoot somebody, if I've gotta photograph somebody a little further away, I'm gonna tilt that bounce so that it can go up at this angle and go down at the same angle. So a little further away, I'll be able to capture that subject in the lighting that I want it to be captured on. And the last version is external, where you put a diffuser, a softbox on this. You can use direct flash. You'll see wedding photographers put this behind their subjects during blue hour to kind of glow and use them as a silhouette. Tons of options with that. If you're gonna be going down that route, this is the one extra piece. So we had the one extra lens, now we have the one extra flash piece. This is gonna be your trigger. So if you want to, you can connect this to this little pop right now. So as the camera goes off, you're gonna be able to press your camera shutter and it's gonna flash for you. I can't state how soon I wish I had done this. I didn't start doing this until the last like year and a half, 2 years. And I feel like as soon as I grabbed it, I realized how far behind in my own head I was with photography because I could have been doing so much more with this flash. This is gonna be the Godox X Pro. Now each camera is gonna have their own version of Pro. This is the X Pro C because I shoot on Canon. You're gonna have your X Pro S, X Pro N, X Pro, I can't think of all of them right now. Anyways, trigger, super useful. I don't know if you can hear it, but my roommate's cat Jeff, which is also my little brother's name, he's a boy. Jeff here is a she, is just talking to me. He can hear me talking, he's talking back. It's really funny. Now, continuing on lighting, I want you to that was a good one right there. I want you to think about picking up this Aperture MC light. Now the MC stands for multicolor. This thing comes with 3 base functions that I absolutely adore. If I was in a little bit better studio situation right now, stuff not being everywhere, I would have set this up and this would have been in the background somewhere. A lot of the times this is what you're seeing in creators' backgrounds when they have cool colored lights in the back. You know, they put them behind stuff so that you got a little bit of an ambient glow. Let me see, can I get this right behind it without you seeing? A little ambient blue light behind something. These are gonna be incredible. They're cost effective. They're super useful. If you're filming on the go, you can pop this on top of your camera with a hot shoe mount adapter. Now, let's go through some of the colors here, which is super cool. It's fun right there. The second option that you have with this is gonna just be running off of Kelvin, which is how warm or cool a light is. This goes from 6,500 Kelvin, which is gonna be very cool. I don't know, this is probably pretty bright right here, but a very cool light. And it goes down to 3,500, which is going to be 3,200, which is gonna be a very warm light. You can use this to fill. If you need to get a little bit of highlight on somebody's hair, you can kind of put this in the background out of frame, get a little bit of a highlight up here. And if you just toss it right on top of the camera and use this as your primary light source, it's gonna look a little like paparazzi, but the quality is there. It comes with a diffuser so that you don't just have the LEDs popping at you, you have a little bit of diffusion to soften that light up just a little bit to, again, step up your game just a little more than the person next to you. Last part that is super exciting for content creators and for effects for videos is that it has a effects panel. So you got fireworks, this is the first one that popped up on here. You've got a faulty bulb, so if you're doing like a little like horror movie and you need to mimic a faulty bulb, you can kind of put this out of frame and have that flash like that. It's kind of cool, right? You got your TV. This kind of just like pops and changes colors just a little bit, just so it seems like something's going on the TV. So if you're not getting really good light, you need to get a fake TV, you pop this out of frame, put it on the TV, and then it's gonna mimic what a TV looks like as you're watching it. Just levels up your production just a little bit in your storytelling. You got your lightning, you can put this on the outside of the window, set up a tripod outside your window at night, close your blinds, and just have this kind of popping on the outside. Now you can get a couple of these and really make it look crazy out there. The one that everybody hates, but is also great, is there is a cop car. You know, you get 2 or 3 of these going while you're filming something, you can make it look like, yeah, a whole SWAT team around you. Super fun, super cool. The one that I've actually used, because I don't use these effects very often, is this little fire. You know, I was at a campsite with my buddy and I just wanted to get a shot of us kind of hanging out by the fire in the evening. It is wicked bright, but the fire wasn't bright enough to actually get us lit, so I put this on the rocks in front of the fire and tilted it up towards us to mimic that, so it pulses like a fire, as well as having the actual ambient fire for practical light. This helped support that story frame in there. Enough about that. Aperture MC, worth it. You can go with ring lights. I'm not gonna suggest any because I've really only used like 1 or 2 of them before. They are super useful for on the go, for tight spaces. If you have a little bit of extra space, I suggest just going ahead and getting yourself a standard video light. So I want to go over the Sony ZV-E10 and the Canon R10. Now, both of these cameras are going to be cameras that if I was starting off fresh today, they would be high up on my radar for a couple of reasons. Let's start off with my personal competition. It's not really competition. All cameras are great at this point. But the Sony ZV-E10, this camera's coming in with about an $800 to $900 asking price right out the gate. This is going to give you full capabilities if you're shooting video. Now I'm gonna say this is kind of a video forward camera in a lot of regards, primarily because Sony rocks on the autofocus system. It's just, they've been unparalleled in it since they got into the game, and nobody's really been able to catch up all the way until you get into those Canon cameras that are somewhere in the game of $3,000 to like $6,000. Now the Sony ZV-E10, like most cameras that are coming out right now, are coming in with a 24 megapixel sensor. Now one of the upsides of that sensor sensor is that it is great in low light. If you're gonna be filming at night or in dimly lit situations, this camera is gonna be able to boast up to about 10,000 ISO, which is very high, and still not incorporate much grain into your image, which is incredible. Now, another upside to this camera is their autofocus system. Again, is that they have this product auto detect, so if you hold something up to the camera, it's gonna snap right to it and then pull right back to you as soon as you're done. Now, as for photography, there is no viewfinder on this, which is like where you actually hold the camera up to your eye and you're gonna be photographing. For me, that's a little bit of a downside, as I like to utilize that. It gives me a better idea of my framing, kind of helps me reduce some of the noise of the world around me. Some photographers say you should shoot with both eyes open. Depending on what I'm shooting, I opt for both of those so I can see what's in the environment a little bit, but I do like having a viewfinder. Not a game breaker though, nothing to throw the camera out because it doesn't exist. The ease of use on this camera seems to be incredible. There's only 3 buttons on it, one for recording, one for photography, and one for slow-mo. Now, when it comes to slow-mo with this camera, it shoots slow-mo at full HD or 1080p, as well as 60 frames a second. This thing rocks 4K with 30 frames a second.
If you have the Sony ZV-E10, you might not have known this like I had.
One of the downsides to shooting film on this camera is that at 4K, once you hit 30 frames a second, if you're gonna be using that for your style or whatever, it is gonna add in that 4K crop at 1.23. So it's gonna bring in that frame just a little bit more. So it's gonna be a little harder to get those wider shots. That being said, it does full frame at 4K at 24 frames per second, as well as most of the time in just about every scenario when you're starting out, if you're not just jumping into buying these $200, $300 to, I don't know, I think they godly go up to thousands of dollars storage. You don't need to shoot in 4K. I'm just shooting that straight because 4K is great because you can cut into the frame. I'm filming this on 1080 just to show you that it doesn't necessarily matter what you're filming on as long as you're getting out there and doing the job until you get onto higher production sets or you find a reason that you're gonna want to crop in on that frame, utilize that sensor. Moving on. So this camera shoots 10 frames per second. So if you're getting into sports photography or you're getting into cars or anything like that, this camera's gonna do pretty decent at it. The Sony ZV-E10 also shoots 10 frames per second if you're gonna be going into photographing anything moving, such as your dog, if you're doing sports photography, if you're getting into cars or anything like that, or you just need some action shots, this will pretty much cover what you need. When it comes to shooting video, this camera is gonna allow you to shoot in log, which is pretty much an uncompressed file so that there's more movement with color in post. So you're able to bring out more lifelike and more cinematic colors from the camera. Now this camera comes with some crazy audio on it where I guess it sounds really good out of camera. I haven't personally had my hands-on experience with that, but what I've seen from other creators who've done reviews on this, the camera has a pretty good built-in microphone. I'm still gonna suggest you upgrade your microphones to the DJI Lav mic or the Rode Video Mic Pro or the Rode Video Mic Go. That's just gonna allow you to have a more rich experience and something that's gonna separate your video from the other person who just got the camera. That being said, it's not an absolute necessity. It's just something that if you are trying to step yourself up into the next sphere of photography and videography, you're gonna have a lot more luck going with a different microphone. The next camera I want to touch base on is a Canon camera. So this one speaks to my heart because I love Canon cameras. I love the color that comes out of them. That's what they're widely known for. Search anybody, they're gonna say the same thing. Moving on. Now, the Canon has 4K recording capabilities, 4K up to 30 frames per second without the crop. Once you get into that crop, you're gonna get a tighter image like with the Sony ZV-E10. This happens with a lot of cameras. Until you really step up into high quality cameras, you're always gonna get a little bit of 4K crop. The intensity of that's gonna vary from camera to camera. Now, one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of, but it is cool to have access to, is Canon's pop-up flash that is on top of this Canon R10. That being said as well, is there is a hot shoe mount, so you can still mount a flash onto it as well as get an adapter so that you can do off-camera flash. This is gonna be useful for both the Sony ZV-E10 as well as the Canon R10. Like the Sony ZV-E10, this camera comes with a 24 megapixel sensor. Both of these are gonna be APS-C sensors, so they're crop sensors. Both cameras are gonna have interchangeable lenses, so you're not stuck with the lens that comes with the camera, which is why I suggest both of these cameras and not some of the other ones that you could get for a little bit cheaper. These are just gonna allow you to have more dynamic looks in your photos and in your videos. I'm gonna put a little sugar in that. That's real good. Anyways, carrying on with the cameras. This camera is gonna beat the Sony ZV-E10 when it comes to photography, shooting frames per second. This one does 15 frames per second mechanical, where if you switch into the electronic frame, you're gonna be able to get 24 frames per second, which is way more than enough. Growing up skateboarding, it was always I think it was 7 frames per second. You gotta see those in the old Thrasher magazines. It was super exciting. Every time I see these numbers go up, it helps create stop motion videos if you wanna do that, if you're just doing some pouring stuff and you just wanna have a little different look for your clients or for yourself, for your social media, for whatever you're creating. Add in for food photography, it's gonna help with cars moving a little faster. That being said, both of these cameras cap off at 1/4000th of a second for their shutter speed, which can be an issue depending on how fast you're going. You will be able to get those shutter drags because you don't need fast shutter speeds to create those images that people are like, wow, they were driving so fast. Like, look how fast they were driving in that photo. The trick to that is actually using a slow shutter speed. So add the motion into the photo by slowing down the shutter speed so that you're capturing the motion, like long exposures, where you see all of the lights getting danced around and people painting and stuff like that. That's a slow shutter speed. Okay, I can't believe you guys got through that. There was a lot there. I'm sure I missed a couple of spots. There's a little bit of gray area. I'm just finishing up editing. I got to the end of the last clip and I was like, wow, great job on wrapping things up right there. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, drop a comment. Let me know if there's something you want me to go more in detail on, or if there's other equipment you'd like me to talk about. I'd love to talk about it, research it. This stuff is my passion. I love it so much. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting me. This was the longest video I've ever gone through, and even though it was just sitting down and probably boring to watch if you're not interested in this, thank you guys. Holy shit. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.